welcome back to my kitchen for another Shemot snack. So this week we are making something stunning, something beautiful. We are making a braised lamb shank in a beautiful red wine sauce. This is so easy, so simple, so delicious and perfect for this week's portion, as I'll explain. I'm going to be using my Instant Pot, but you can easily do this either on your stove or in the oven, and I will give you instructions as we go. So to start off, get your pot really quite hot and add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. Now I'm using one lamb shank, and the recipe is really easy to scale up. Just with the sauce ingredients, probably go 50% for every lamb shank you add. I reckon one will probably feed one very hungry person, or more likely 2 people. So put your lamb shank in and sear it a little bit in the oil. You want to sear it because searing is flavour. If you don't sear it, you don't get flavour. If you do sear it, it tastes absolutely amazing. Whilst it is searing, prepare your vegetables. Now the vegetables are really quite simple for this dish. We're going to have 1 onion, 2 small carrots and 3 cloves of garlic, as well as some rosemary. So I like to chop up my onion into chunks because it's going to fry down, and also some carrots and cut them into small bite-sized pieces. I will see you once my vegetables are prepared and the lamb has finished browning. Now browned off, and I'm going to start doing the vegetables. So again, another tablespoon of oil, and in first I'm going to put my 1 onion that I've chopped up and just let that start to fry. And as that is frying, I'm going to soon add my carrots, a couple of sprigs of rosemary, and the 3 cloves of garlic. I'm just going to slightly squash, slightly smash. Now, whilst this is cooking, let me tell you about this week's portion. This week's portion is Parashat Bo, and Parashat Bo tells the story of the Exodus. This is the moment that we finally start to break free from Pharaoh. We have the last 3 plagues. The last one obviously being the killing of the firstborn, or the death of the firstborn, after which Pharaoh says, "Go, go, go, I want you out of my land." And so the Jewish people head towards the Yam Suf, the Reed Sea or the Red Sea, ready to set up next week's portion where we are finally going to be broken free from Pharaoh forever. I want to share with you a short idea about this week's portion. But before I do, I'm going to add in now my carrots to my onions. So the idea goes as follows. This week's portion, as well as being the Exodus, also contains the very first mitzvah given to us as a people. Up until now, we've had 3 mitzvahs given to individuals, which are then going to get repeated at Sinai. But this week's portion tells the first mitzvah given to us as a nation, and that mitzvah is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. It is the requirement to establish a calendar, to follow the lunar calendar, for 2 witnesses to go up and view the new moon in the land of Israel and say that now there is a new month and this is going to be the date, and so on and so forth, that we're going to have these months, and then there's going to be these festivals. The question I want to ask is, why is this the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people? Why not Shabbat? Why not Kashrut? Why not so many other mitzvahs I could think which are better to give to the Jewish people as the first mitzvah? But I want to share with you a beautiful idea which I think really helps explain how this is not just a mitzvah, but rather it is a gift. The philosopher, the economist Matt Ridley, suggests something in his book, The Rational Optimist. He goes as follows: that time, not money, is the most important commodity. My eyes are watering from these onions, making it so much more difficult to tell you the idea. But it's a beautiful idea, that's why I'm trying. Time, not money, is the most important commodity. A rich person is somebody who is able, it's not somebody who's just got lots of money in their account, but is able to use their time for whatever they want. Think about it. When you go to work, if you are employed, you are selling 35, 37 hours of your week in order to receive money. Time, not money, is important. Now, what does a slave not have mastery over? Their time. They are unable to decide how they're going to use their time. They're unable to say when they're going to go to sleep, when they're going to eat. They are fully at the beck and call of their master. God gives to the Jewish people this first mitzvah of establishing a calendar, gaining mastery over time. It was up to us to establish when the new month was being called, and therefore when the festivals were going to happen. God was giving us the gift of time, because as slaves, we did not have ownership over time, and finally we did. So, as the first leaving Egypt present, we get this mitzvah to establish a calendar to have mastery over time. The question is, given how important time is, how are you going to use your time? Are you going to kill time? Are you going to let time go to waste? Or are you going to try and make every moment, every minute count, every hour matter? That is our challenge, to use time to the full, to maximize our time, to do as much good as we can in our time. One thing that you can use your time on is by cooking this dish. So, the onions are sweating down nicely, the carrots are starting to soften. I'm going to add in 3 cloves of garlic, which I'm just going to lightly crush with the back of my knife. This is going to add some flavour. And I'm going to throw in a couple of twigs of rosemary. This is a beautiful dish once you've got past the tears that might come from the onion. Give it a little bit of a mix. And add in a tablespoon of tomato puree, tomato paste. Once you've done that, let it fry for about 30 seconds. I love the smell of garlic and rosemary. There's something amazing about that smell. And get your red wine. So I'm using 125 millilitres of red wine. Pour that in and let it boil down for a couple of minutes. Whilst that is boiling, let me tell you why we are making this dish. Because straight after God gives us that gift of time, tells us to establish the new month, we are told about the Paschal Lamb, the Paschal offering that was going to be given that first Exodus and then every subsequent year following. And that was a lamb. The Jewish people were told to go sacrifice a lamb and take the blood and put it on the doorposts. Lamb is synonymous with those original Passovers, with those original Pesachs. So we have to celebrate lamb, hence why we are doing my lamb shank with a red wine, beautiful red wine sauce. As it is boiling down, you want to add in 1 meat stock cube. If you don't have a meaty stock cube, then use probably a couple of tablespoons of meat stock powder. If you have some bone broth, that is absolutely amazing. Do all of this in the pan that you have browned your meat in. If you are going to be putting this in the oven, still use that same pan to do this step. So put in your stock cube and add in about 200 millilitres of water. Do you know what? Make it 300 millilitres of water, having seen how much there is in there. Bring it up to the boil and give it a mix. Make sure you've got all of those flavours mixing together. Give it about 10 grinds of pepper and put the lamb back in the pot to cook. Now, if you're doing this in the oven, what I would say is put all of this into a pan, tightly cover it and cook it for about 2.5 hours on 140 degrees Celsius. After then, test if the meat is soft enough. If it's soft, perfect. If not, maybe give it another half an hour until it is soft. If you want to do it on the stovetop, simmer this for about 2 hours. Again, test after 2 hours if the meat is soft or not. It should be falling off the bone. You might need to keep an eye if it's on the stove that it doesn't boil away, so top up with a bit more water. Using a pressure cooker, you want to cook it for 35 minutes at high pressure and then let it naturally release. Test again if the meat is soft enough. If not, give it a few more minutes at high pressure. You might then want to reduce down the sauce so it is a beautiful sauce which coats and covers the lamb. So just giving it a final mix, making sure that my lamb is covered in this beautiful sauce. This is going to be stunning. I've forgotten one ingredient, and that is you would like to add in a bay leaf. Put the lid on and I'll show you once it's done. So here it is, my lamb shank in a red wine sauce. A beautiful dish, a wonderful Shemot snack for a perfect portion. Celebrate the Exodus, make this, have a great one. Shabbat Shalom.